Good day, everyone. So for today, we will be discussing our Module 3, Lesson 1, which is the biological hazards carried by the food. So in our last topic, before the prelims examination, we have discussed the physical and the chemical hazards. So today, ating i-discuss is the biological hazards carried by the food. So this will be included in our midterms examination. So, biological hazards. Biological hazards are those that are caused by various microorganisms that contaminate the food items. So, among these microorganisms are virus, bacteria, parasites, or fungi. So, virus. Viruses are pretty much from other microorganisms, particularly bacteria. First, they are smaller than bacteria. Thus, a special type of microscope, particularly an electron microscope, is needed to study them. So, virus, kinahanglan pa natin special type of microscope para lang natin hira makitaan. So, this special type of microscope is called the electron microscope. Second, unlike bacteria, viruses needed a living host, either animal or human, in order to survive, grow, and multiply. So, as of now, we are in a pandemic, and may kita tinatawag nga coronavirus or COVID-19 virus. So, kasagsagan ng pandemic, we were instructed to stay at home because kay para diri mag-grow and mag-multiply, kay as long as may ada living host or may da mga tawo nga masasalinan hini nga virus, mas magdadamo and makokontaminate hini niya nga virus. Okay. Next, there are 3 important viruses that can be hazardous in the food service industry. We have the Norwalk, Hepatitis A, and Rotavirus. So we will discuss it each thoroughly. We have the Norwalk virus. This type of virus is commonly found in, first, we have contaminated rivers and seas, infected workers, raw clams and oysters, particularly taken from contaminated waters, contaminated salad ingredients. So, you can get norovirus from direct contact with an infected person, touching contaminated surface and then putting your unwashed hands in your mouth. So, in order to prevent this virus, follow the precaution below. First, we should cook all shellfish properly. Second, obtain shellfish and other raw ingredients from reputable sources. So, permi ko inihiyagin mi mention nga dapat kung mapalkitahin mga shellfishes, we should buy from respected companies, trusted or reputable sources of food. So take note next, we should always take note of the temperature danger zone in serving food items, which is 5 to 60 degrees Celsius inihiyang temperature danger zone. And pag lumagpas na nga nihin 4 hours and pagkaon nga nabutang natin hiha temperature danger zone, it is not consumable na kay it might be contaminated by bacteria or microorganisms. So, last is use a clean water supply in cleaning. Kay dane, when we wash fruits and vegetables, it atong ginagamit nga water is also polluted. So, it might also cause this virus or this Norwalk virus. Common symptoms from a person suffering from Norwalk virus will experience the following symptoms within 24 to 48 hours. First, you will have vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, headache, and low-grade fever. So, a fever is when a person's body temperature is higher than normal. So, for most people, normal fever is 37 degrees Celsius and above. So, a low grade means that the temperature is slightly elevated. So, it is between 37.5 degrees Celsius and 38.3 degrees Celsius. It is more of like what we called CNAT. Okay. Next, we have the rotavirus. So, this type of virus is commonly found in contaminated rivers also and seas, contaminated salad ingredients, raw fish and shellfish from contaminated waters. So, in order to prevent this virus, please follow the precautions below. So, it is parehas lait hirahan ang mga precautions na una, which is Norwalk virus. So, first, avoid buying fish and shellfish from unknown supplier. proper washing of hands or of fruits and vegetables using clean water, labi na hit aton mga ingredients. So a person infected with rotavirus may experience mild to severe symptoms, and among these symptoms are the following: vomiting, water diarrhea, low-grade fever. Also, it will decrease your urination, and also you feel dizzy when you stand up, unusual sleepiness or fussiness. Okay, next we have the hepatitis A. This type of virus is responsible for causing a liver disease called infectious hepatitis. So the most common source of hepatitis A virus is from an infected human. So these viruses are also found in some contaminated rivers and seas. Thus, consuming raw and lightly cooked clams and oysters from these contaminated waters are also sources of infection. So, hepatitis A is an inflammation of the liver that can cause mild to severe illnesses. So, it is transmitted through ingested, but when we ingest contaminated food or water, or through direct contact with an infectious person. So, it can be spread from close personal contact with an infected person, such as through certain types of sexual contact. So, it is very important that we will be mindful with this situation. Okay, a person suffering from hepatitis A virus will experience the following symptoms. First, you will experience fever, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, fatigue, swelling of the liver in advanced stages, and jaundice, yellowing of the skin and eyes. The onset time for an infection of hepatitis is 15 to 50 days after eating the contaminated food. Okay, so next we have parasites. Parasites are small or microscopic creatures that need to live on or inside a living host in order to survive. So we have the first example of a parasite is Anakis spp, or spp means species. So these are the nematodes, round worms associated with foodborne infection from fish. The worms are about 1 to 1.5 inches long and have the diameter of a human hair. They come in variety of colors such as beige, ivory, white, gray, brown, or pink. So these worms attach themselves to the victim's stomach. So the common symptoms are the following. We have abdominal pain, vomiting, coughing if the worms are attached in the throat. When the worms attach themselves in the large intestine, they produce a sharp pain similar to those produced by appendicitis. So this is what it looks like. Okay, so the sources of contamination are the following. Consumption of raw or undercooked seafood, amo nito ang mga salmon, herring, sea urchins, crabs, shrimp, starfish, and tuna. So crevice or fresh seafood salad is known to carry this parasite. In order to avoid being contaminated by these worms, inspect seafood properly to expose these worms. Cook seafood to proper cooking temperature. Next we have is the Cyclosporiasis. These parasites finds its way into water and they can be transferred to foods. So an infected person will be suffering from cyclosporiasis. If na-contaminate kita hini or nakasulod ini aton lawas ini nga parasite. So this is an infection upon the small intestine resulting from watery diarrhea. Other symptoms include the following: the loss of appetite, weight loss, nausea, bloating of the stomach, stomach cramps, vomiting, muscle pains, fever, and fatigue. So this is what it looks like, the Cyclospora cayetanensis. So the sources of contamination are the following: fresh vegetables that had been contaminated by polluted water, fresh fruits that had been contaminated by polluted water. So drinking also polluted or contaminated water. So this type of parasite is passed from one person to another through fecal oral transmission. So when we say fecal, it is an pupu, feces, feces na nakukuha natin it's either had contaminated water. So the foods became contaminated after being washed with water containing fecal matter. So, also, it is nakukuha gyapon nito natin from an infected worker who did not properly or wash their hands in handling food. So it is very important that after we use the comfort room or the restroom, we should always properly wash our hands to avoid these kinds of parasites. In order to avoid this parasite, the following should be taken into consideration. So first, we buy food only from respected manufacturer or supplier. Wash properly fruits and vegetables before consuming them. Avoid getting into contact with polluted water and avoid getting into contact with infected person. Next, we have the Cryptosporidium parvum. This type of microorganisms are single-celled and are often called protozoa. So these parasites are often found in water that had been contaminated with cow feces, and pupu han carabao. So diarrhea is the most common symptoms of an infected person from Cryptosporidium. In some rare instances, the symptoms may last for a month if left untreated. In order to avoid these parasites, fresh fruits and vegetables should be properly washed before consuming them. This should be done in particularly to fruits and vegetables that had been fertilized by cow's manure or an ginagamit natin an pupuhan carabao as a fertilizer. So we should properly wash them before consuming these fruits or vegetables. This is what it looks like, the Cryptosporidium parvum. Next, we have the Toxoplasma Gondii. This parasite is common to warm-blooded animals such as cats, cows, pigs, sheep, chickens, and birds. To a healthy adult or child, the symptoms of this parasite may be felt at all or diri gud hiya naton na abaton kung we are healthy. A few people may experience muscle aches, fever, swollen lymph glands, or headache. So, however, infected people who had been recently experienced an organ transplant or having immune system problems such as HIV infected, they may develop severe eye or brain damage. So this is what it looks like, the Toxoplasma Gondii. In order to avoid being contaminated with this type of parasites, the following should be taken in consideration. First, avoid eating raw or uncooked meats. So we should avoid eating ang mga hilaw good na karne. So dapat it should be properly cooked by a certain temperature. Next, sanitize knives and chopping boards properly to avoid cross-contamination. So when we are cooking, it is very important that we chop, that we sanitize knives and the chopping boards kay dida ito nagtitikang cross-contamination nga nagkakaadhing contamination of bacteria, microorganisms, parasites. Okay. So next we have properly wash hands after handling raw meats and vegetables. And avoid cuts of their feces as they are said to be major source of animal that transmit the parasite. Let's avoid mga pupuhan cats kay amo ito ang major source hini nga parasite na Toxoplasma Gondii nagcha-transmit hiya hini nga parasite and pupuhan cats. Okay, next we have the Trichinella spiralis. This is a roundworm that can cause serious parasitic infection. So this type of parasite is carried by meat-eating animals in their muscles. So they get transmitted to humans by eating poorly cooked meat of infected animals. So early symptoms of Trichinella spiralis may include the following. We have first the diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, abdominal pains. So this is what it looks like, the Trichinella spiralis. So early stages are characterized by the following: fever, swelling of tissues around the eyes, muscle stiffness, and death may occur in very severe cases. So major source of contamination is usually pork meat. Hakarnihan, baboy. However, other game's meat are also found to be sources. Among them are the following. We have the wild boar, bears, and wild cats. Okay, next we have bacteria. This is the most famous type of microorganisms that causes foodborne diseases. So generally, bacteria that cause foodborne diseases are classified into two major groups. So, spore-forming bacteria and non-spore-forming bacteria. A spore is a thick-walled, dehydrated structure that can resist extreme dryness and very high temperatures for long periods of time. So, spores are harmful when ingested except, hanaton, Clostridium Botalism, which we will discuss it later on. However, when these spores come into contact with food items at a temperature, they begin to multiply and can cause serious illness to a person ingesting the bacteria. So these are the examples of spore-forming bacteria. We have Clostridium perfringens. This is a type of bacteria that requires little oxygen in order to survive. So, Clostridium is a genus of rod-shaped, rod-shaped ichthya, usually a gram-positive bacteria which can be found in soil, water, and the intestinal tracts of humans and other animals. So, they most grow only in the complete absence of oxygen. So, next we have the Bacillus cereus. This is another spore-forming bacteria that is mostly found in the following: rice, cornstarch, soybeans, tofu, flour, pasta, and potatoes. So in order to avoid this bacteria, make sure that the following items may be stored properly. Once cooked, the temperature danger zone should be followed strictly. 5 to 60 degrees Celsius, an ating temperature danger zone, and we should not leave the food beyond 4 hours. This is what it looks like, the Clostridium perfringens and the Bacillus cereus. Okay. Next, we have the Clostridium botulism. So this type of bacteria is able to produce a neurotoxin. A neurotoxin is a substance that destroys or damages or impairs the functioning of the nerve tissues. So this is very deadly to humans. So most common symptoms of this type of bacteria are the following. We have a headache, difficulty in breathing, difficulty in swallowing, dizziness, double vision. So this is what it looks like, and Clostridium botulism. So most common foods that are found to be contaminated with this bacteria are the following: improper heating of processed canned goods such as canned fish, canned meats, and meat products. So these meat products are sausages, luncheon meat, canned vegetables, also garlic that is stored in oil, and onions that are stored in butter. So on our last discussion, before the examination, we have discussed the proper heating of food, which is 15 minutes. So, kailangan natin i-heat ang mga canned goods kay labi na iba, diri na niragin papaso it dilata diretso na niragin kakaon. So, if we ever eat such canned goods, we will magkakaada inihin type of bacteria, which is the Clostridium botulism, and it is very deadly to humans. Okay, next we have the non-spore forming bacteria. We have the one example is the Escherichia coli. So it is also known as E. coli. So this bacteria is a shigotoxin. This type of bacteria is usually found in the intestines of warm-blooded animals such as beef, pork, or even humans. It can cause abdominal pain, vomiting, bloody stool, kidney failure, and eventually death. So the most common transmission of these microorganisms is by cross-contamination of raw meat from the slaughterhouse. So slaughterhouse pala, di na nagtitikang an E. coli bacteria. Kay nagkakaana ng antuhin, cross-contamination. This is what it looks like, an E. coli. Next, we have the Listeria monocytogenes. So the unique characteristic of this bacteria is that it has the ability to grow under the extreme conditions such as below 5 degrees Celsius. So it can survive kung mahagkot it temperatura. It can also survive in foods that contain high salt. So this type of microorganisms is common in the following: seafood, sausages and hot dogs, raw meats, raw poultry, raw fruits and vegetables, ice cream, and milk. So this is what it looks like, the Listeria monocytogenes. Next, we have the Campylobacter geogeny. This type of bacteria can cause severe abdominal severe abdominal pain and bloody diarrhea. So these are mostly common in raw meat, raw poultry, and milk. Okay, next we have the Shigella spp or species. This type of bacteria is responsible for foodborne illness known as shigellosis. So these bacteria are commonly found in the intestines and feces of humans and warm-blooded animals. So di day nakikita ha intestine naton and also ha aton pupu and also ha mga warm-blooded animals. So this is what it looks like, the Campylobacter geogeny and the Shigella species. Okay, next we have the Salmonella spp species. This type of microorganisms is usually found in the intestines of human and animals. So infected chickens can pass these microorganisms into their eggs. So food items that are commonly contaminated with Salmonella are the following. Ito ang eggs and dairy products, and milk, and raw meat, poultry products, chocolate, or pork, and pork. So this is what it looks like, the Salmonella species. Next, we have the Staphylococcus aureus. So this type of bacteria produces a dangerous toxin when it come into contact with the food items. So these bacteria are commonly found in the hands, hair, throat, nose, and skin. So common food items infected by these bacteria are the following: ready-to-eat meats, cold cuts, dairy products, vegetables, poultry, and luncheon meats. So this is what it looks like, the Staphylococcus aureus. So nakikita na niya microscope diri tayo niya makikita aton kung kikitaon tala aton mata it should be seen in a special microscope. Okay, in order to avoid the contamination of all of this hinita na bacteria, parasites, the viruses, the following hygienic practices of workers and kita also atong tagsa-tagsa nga panimalay should be followed. So when sneezing or coughing, cover your nose and mouth with a clean handkerchief and immediately wash your hands before proceeding to handle foods in the workplace or at home. So next, use a separate tasting spoon in every time you taste food and make sure the spoons are washed immediately after using them to avoid cross-contamination. So, pag nagluluto kita, it is not necessary nga aton king gagamit pagtilaw han aton linuto an luwag So we should get a separate tasting spoon and then wash it right away pagtapos na naton gamiton to avoid cross-contamination. Next, do not touch your mouth, your eyes, your ears, and your hair when you handle food. And also, do not pick your nose when working. So, workers who smoke during break time should make sure to wash their hands before handling food. And lastly, workers suffering from cough and colds should not report to work, para maiwasan natin ang pag-multiply han viruses or bacteria. Okay, so that is all for our module 3, which is the biological hazards carried by the food. So this will be included in your module 3, and I hope you will read the modules that I have sent to you. So thank you for listening. Have a nice day.